sometimes it comes down to the point about what you want to do and how you want to do it and the impact it'll have on somebody else. And if you keep getting that right, the confidence that other people get from your presence actually just grows, and the collective confidence grows. I think it's the ability to win under pressure and see the winning decisions that have to be made to actually complete a performance, and being able to do that consistently and recognise that, I think leads then to players seeing the most in themselves and bringing the most out of themselves, but most importantly bringing the most out of each other, which, when as a coach, was the greatest satisfaction I ever felt when you watch players who are actually doing that, and it's the chemistry between them that is actually changing the environment. Yes, I think I got help. I was obviously trained as a school teacher, and actually learned a bit there about sharing ideas. And, I don't have all the answers, never have had. But when I was coming through, I suppose, as a player and then as a coach, is I got so much help and support from other people who had knowledge that I didn't have, that actually helped me shape my thinking. And I always said it to the players that no one person has all the answers, but the answers are often in the room, and a collective intelligence of a group of people who are prepared to share everything and their own knowledge. They will have things that nobody else actually necessarily knows in that context.
Sure.
And once you get that on the table, then you have a conversation and I think a development in thinking that actually takes you forward. And that's the bit I really enjoyed. And then having got that, you really look at the key elements that simplify how you want to work that collectively to get it on the field in a consistent way. Well, I think you've got to have individual conversations with players and get to know them a little bit, understand them. One thing with my education background is people learn in different ways, and people talk about information in different ways. And it was being able to just understand the best ways sometimes of communicating with a player. And part of that might be trying to put a picture in his head of what they could be capable of or what they were capable of, and ways of getting there. And I think in rugby, if you look at what you're doing and what you're capable of doing, and you see the impact that can have on somebody else or another group, then you're actually setting a train of thinking going where what you're looking at is the impact by changing what you're doing or adjusting what you're doing, and that impact that is having on the performance of everyone collectively. And I think if a player will give you feedback about how he's feeling, or if he's got some concerns even, or something's not clear, some of the best information I can get is when a player says, look, I don't quite understand that. Why? And you're going through that understanding. And sometimes you vary the skills or the involvement, but actually putting it then into context of doing something to make it clear to the player So he has that understanding. But most importantly, if there isn't that understanding, then I get that information from him very early in any. So we're not trying to develop something where we've got all these loose ends of misunderstanding, which tend to, confuse things, and try and just get that simplicity of saying, look, this is where we are, this is where you are. If we do this, this suddenly allows the next thing to happen, which impacts on the team performance. And often it is under pressure. I've called it world-class basics, that each position or each role has certain skills that are very specific to that role. And that's often the selection of why that person is there, why that player is there, that he has skills, he has an attitude and his approach that makes a difference to that position. But by doing that and by taking that on, you then have an understanding of what happens within the players next to you and the group that's 2 passes away from you. And so building that collective understanding of the impact of what you can do under pressure. And often it's the basics. It's actually delivering something that you can do or needs to be done that actually makes a difference when it matters. It's not show, it's actually impact on performance. And that to me is elite performance, because it's actually changing what everybody can do and how everybody can operate at their maximum. Well, I suppose I could go back to my Northampton days with Matt Dawson as a youngster, who was a very natural running, high involvement scrum half with a very good pass. Now he tended to overrun, so everybody just kept an eye on him, because ultimately there'd be a turnover because they were waiting for him. And I just said, look, let's try and build a game where actually I want you to have your hands on the ball 4 or 5 occasions without anything happening other than your passing. And I said, wait for the moment where people then forget about you, and that's the time to break. And it might only be 2 halves, twice in a game, in a half. But actually when it happens, it's devastating. And have the patience to say, pass. Because I said, the next thing is, if you keep passing, I said, there's another breakdown. There's another opportunity for you by passing, not by running all the time. And we worked through that. And he took it on board. And, with England and with the Lions, he just became an outstanding number 9, because he varied what he did and when he did it. No, it came out of the environment, really. At any point, you're sort of looking at what you think the players need most, or where they are, whether, it's confidence or just a recognising of the environment or the challenge that's there. As a player, I can still remember, and certainly with the Lions, if we won the 3rd test in South Africa back in 1974, we'd won a series for the first time ever in South Africa. And that was the hardest test match I ever played in. Because South Africa, they'd had a team talk from Gary Player. They picked 9 forwards. They picked a forward at scrum half. So we knew there was going to be a physicality about it. And the first 40 minutes of that game was the hardest half of rugby I ever played. And we struggled to get out of our half, but nobody, and we had to defend. So it wasn't about winning the game, but we could have lost it in that 40 minutes. And there was a defensive performance of just everybody doing what they had to do to keep South Africa out. And sometimes, and it's where the chemistry comes in, had a really good relationship with Dick Milliken, who was the other centre. But other players, Fergus Slattery, I can still remember them, still see what they were doing. And sometimes you couldn't speak. You literally got up off the ground and you just had a look, and somebody would look back at you and you knew where you had to go next. And there was that intensity of saying somebody was looking after you, but you knew you had to work hard to try and make their job easier. And all this, or the majority of this, was without the ball. And that went on for 38 minutes. On the 39th minute, we broke away out of our 22. And we got up, and I kicked to the far corner, and we got a line out 5 metres from their line. Gordon Brown stole it, and we scored. So having been under that intense pressure, we go in at half-time 6-3 up. And in the second half, we actually then, a couple of fights later, but we then opened the game up because they couldn't stay at the intensity they'd had. And we end up winning 29 points to 6, but it was what was around of, I knew I was being looked after, and I knew I had to look after the next player. So it's a long-winded way of saying, I suppose, that when you've got a feeling, I know what it's like in a test match environment, that it's personal. Sometimes it comes down to the point about what you want to do and how you want to do it and the impact it'll have on somebody else. And if you keep getting that right, the confidence that other people get from your presence actually just grows, and the collective confidence grows. So, when I was talking to the players, different things, I'd just go out for a walk. I wouldn't write it all down, no. But I'd have very clear in my head, because sometimes you can say too much, and I have done that in the past. It's just being able in 3 or 4 minutes to actually say as a coach, what I was feeling. And some of those, when it's personal, it is actually understanding the player, understanding what's got them to that point, which is a lot of other people going out of their way to make things work. And then what you want them to do is go out of their way to make things work in that 80 minutes. So it sort of came from my own experience of the support I got at different stages in my life as a player and a coach. A father who put £5 in my pocket when I was still at school as an 18-year-old so that I could buy the rounds and stand at the bar after a game and still buy a round with everybody else. What I didn't know until after he died was he had to walk to work the last 2 days of the week because he'd no money.
Oh, you're going to have me crying in a minute.
So that motivation is, I would never do anything second rate. And wow. People came across like that. I always, have that in the back of my mind, that there's a lot of people did a lot of things to actually allow, me to be able to do and think what I'd been able to do. And I think, with players and that understanding that the best teamwork is appreciating that a lot of hard work goes in with a lot of other people. Well, I've been fortunate to play with and coach some hugely talented players. And I think it's like I say, I think it's them recognising that your talent is only effective if it impacts on what everybody can do. It's only partly individual. And if you get that right, then you find that your talent comes into play more and more often, because actually the right things are happening around you because of your approach. And I think the other thing is you respect the people that you play with and you work with. And it's same with, I've had some tremendous support staff, coaching wise in different teams, where we'd make a point of going out for a drink together at night. Or when I was at Wasps, we used to have afternoon teas on a Thursday, and it was all the support staff, and we'd just talk about anything and everything, to say where we were. And it's recognizing that talent appears in different ways in different areas and impacts in different ways. But what you do is you respect the differences that people have. The last thing I would have wanted was a team of all the same. What I actually wanted was accumulation of talent, attitude and approach that actually was just pulling the most out of each other all the time. And the support staff, we try to do that. So if there's something not right, I think what I'd said earlier is you need that out in the open early, and you need people to understand that you will genuinely listen, and that on the back of those conversations, so be it with players or a doctor, a physio, a fitness guy, another coach, whoever it is, you're actually trying to get the best environment out and situation, working environment. And in the end, your working environment's a living environment as well, that you have to have a smile on your face, I think, when you're coming into work in the morning and into the club to train, whatever it is. And in Alliance Tour, none of that is different. It's as a group. The thing I had to look at and pinch myself sometimes was looking at the quality of talent, but the quality of person that was actually there in the whole group. And I think if you respect that, then the pressure of social media now is massive, but you have to understand why you're there, why you've got a reputation, or why you've been able to achieve something. And as long as you respect that position you're in, then I think you don't take off in a direction which starts to isolate.